Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft Legion beta video. Today we are going to be talking about how Titan-forged gear works in Legion. You might think it's a niche topic, but bear in mind that unlike past expansions, almost all gear in Legion can be Titan-forged, and honestly, all of this randomness in gearing has been a decently hot topic issue, so in this video I'm going to explain it. Now, what does Titan-forged mean? Well, in Legion, each bit of gear has a base item level. It can then, on occasion, boost up to a higher item level when it drops. This occurs in increments of 5 item levels, up to an item level that is significantly higher than the base item level. Overall, the maximum item level that gear can actually be is set globally. It's going to be capped at 850 before raids come out in order to preserve the raid gameplay and competitiveness, and then after raids come out it will be increased to 895. Note that gear Titan forges past its base item level. This means that doing more difficult content will, on average, yield a significantly higher item level reward because the gear from more difficult content has a higher base item level to work from. Also, I am referring to the entire system as Titan-forged, but it's worth mentioning that while gear can proc a higher item level, it's only labelled as Titan-forged if that is upgraded by 15 item levels. You can actually have gear be upgraded by 5 or 10 before it becomes Titan-forged, though that's really just a label. Blizzard are purposefully not giving us the exact maths behind how the Titan-forged system works, but Associate Game Director Ian Hazacostas has given us some examples to indicate and illustrate how the system works. He gave us the example of the chance for an upgrade being 50%. Now, this is not the chance for an upgrade in the actual game, but he said that we are to pretend that when an item drops, we flip a coin, and we increase the item level of our bit of gear by 5 for each time the coin lands on heads. So we just continue to flip this coin until it lands on tails, i.e. we stop, or we hit the maximum item level that gear can be. So that's our example. Let's go through the various sources of gear and the base item levels that they will be before we go back on this example and illustrate how it works. Starting off with the dungeons. Normal dungeons have a base eye level of 805, heroics are 825, and mythics are 840. Moving on to the world content, the base item level is 805, though bear in mind that apparently this base item level somewhat increases with your own item level of your character. I think that's done to keep the world content a bit more relevant to your character. Anyway, moving on to raids, we're just going to go through the Emerald Nightmare raid, which is the equivalent to Highmaul in Warlords. On LFR it drops 835, on normal it drops 850, on heroic it drops 865, and on mythic it drops 885. And then finally we have world bosses, which are item level 860. So those numbers that I just quoted are the item levels that all of those bits of gear start at. They are all subject to the Titan-forged system, which, as we covered, increases the item level of gear based on a random chance at increments of 5 item levels. It's basically just an expansion of the Thunderforged system and Warforged system that we have known from past expansions. So let's go back on that example that Ian gave and see how it applies to these numbers. Let's take LFR drops at item level 835 and a heroic raid drop at item level 865. For the bit of LFR gear to boost up to item level 865, it will need to increase by 30 item levels, meaning it would have to win this 50-50 coin toss 6 times in a row. Getting heads once is a 50% chance. Getting it twice is a 25% chance. Getting it 3 times is a 12.5% chance. Getting it 4 times is a 6.25% chance. Getting it 5 times is a 3.125% chance, and getting it 6 times is a 1.5625% chance. So, the chance of a bit of LFR gear being as good as a bit of base heroic gear is 1.5%, and the chance of it being as good as a bit of normal raid gear is 12.5%. Of course, that's just the chance of it being the same item level as an unupgraded and un-Titanforged bit of heroic or normal gear. So as an example, if a bit of heroic gear starts off at a base eye level of 865 and then Titan forges by, say, 20 item levels, it's now 885, far out of the reach of anything you will realistically get from LFR. And this maths does get a bit, well, improbable. For an example, the chance of a bit of LFR gear being as good as a bit of mythic gear is a percentage chance of 0.097. Very rare indeed. Do bear in mind that these are absolutely not the actual drop rates of any of this stuff in-game. They are, however, using the numbers that Ian gave us as an illustrative example, so if you understand the numbers and stuff that I just quoted, you've pretty much got the crux of how this system works. The overarching point here is that you will still get the best bits of gear from doing the hardest content. Now, it is true that an LFR player might, quite reasonably, get a few bits of item level 850 gear. That's just winning, with this example, right, it's just winning 3 coin tosses in a row, but obviously the real numbers will be different. But equally, a normal raider will have roughly, I assume, the same chance of getting 3 upgrades in their gear, bringing it from 850 to 865, i.e. 3 upgrades over its base item level. So what does all of this mean for you? Well, you will likely be shooting to do the hardest content that you can reasonably do if you want to get a high item level bit of gear as quickly as you can. The main difference is that there is more content repetition here, and you will want to do content that has a base item level closer to your own. Previously, right, if you had, say, a bit of item level, or you were all in item level 700 gear, then any content that dropped 690 gear, that would be totally pointless. Now, though, that content could reasonably Titan Forge to the point where it is an upgrade for you. Now, of course, doing lots of content that is far below your current item level will not be very time efficient, but as an example, doing normal raids and doing mythic dungeons will be a very good combination to get lots of upgrades quickly. Now, one thing that I need to mention is I'm keen to see some solid numbers on how Mythic Plus gear operates. As you know, there are Mythic Dungeons, but then there is Mythic Plus, which will scale up the difficulty and the rewards that you get. Now, according to all the stuff that I've seen, Mythic Plus has the same base item level of 840 that the regular Mythic Dungeons have, so perhaps the Mythic Plus rewards just have a higher chance of Titan Forging. We'll have to wait and see. Another thing that this does is it places emphasis on content that can be repeated. For an example, doing a full set of LFR stuff might involve you killing like 10 bosses. That pales in comparison to running loads of mythic and heroic dungeons. Content that is easily repeatable is just favored by this system because you will end up having more rolls of the dice to get lucky with. So while you can get pretty good gear from LFR, realistically you're going to be gearing up quite a lot faster if you're grinding out the heroic and mythic dungeons. Now, of course, by the time you get into raiding, it will be abundantly clear that, if you're doing heroic raids or mythic raids, you won't have to go back and grind heroic dungeons or something like that. So we'll have to see how all this plays out when Legion launches, and do bear in mind that this is all based off beta numbers, and there is a chance for all of that stuff to change, but basically, that is how the random gear is working in Legion. That's pretty much the scope of this video, though. My opinions are readily available in other places. So, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think about this system down in the comments or via Twitter, which is the best place to get a hold of me. And with that, I will see you next time.